In this video, we'll explore the mathematics of consciousness. And the first thing to understand is that consciousness, as we experience consciousness, comes through the medium of language. In other words, what we're conscious of, our thoughts and our feelings, are impossible to bring to consciousness without putting them into words. In other words, try and be conscious of something that has no language, that has no sensation, no feeling, no shape, nothing. Because, of course, shape is through language. Shape is a word. And a given shape, a triangle, is another word. And so we experience things through language. And the question is, what do we experience in this domain of language, in this domain of consciousness? And I'd like to suggest that we have a self that is a witness, that we have the witness, which is perhaps the one observing the equations. We have the ego that is the conscious equation. And so think of it like a sound, like a flow, that is refracted mathematically to create a whole host of different beliefs, attitudes, feelings, thoughts, choices, decisions, a whole host of different conscious experiences in different dimensions, political, economic, relational, in our body, in the body of which we are a part, in the ecology. That energy flows between the self and the larger self. That much like a cell in the hand flows energy into the larger body, so the cell of the human ego and the cell of the human body interacts with the larger body through air, through liquid, through solids, through movement, just like any cell in the human body exchanges through the bloodstream. Breathing in, breathing out, taking in, giving out. So we have this relationship between the self and the larger self, between the cell and the body, between the individual and the environment that consists of other individuals, but also the environment of the forest, the trees, the water, the sunlight, all of the things that keep us alive, all of the things that we would die instantly without. You take away all the heat, we're dead. We take away all the air, we're dead. We take away all the food, we're dead. We take away all the liquid, we're dead. We accelerate the wind, we're dead. We go underwater, we're dead. So we are coexisting in an ecology between the smaller self and the larger self, and in between we have this thing called ego. And the ego has a couple of different facets, and I've drawn this image of a refracted gem to give some sense of how this energy. Now, just to back up a little bit, if we look at a compact disc or a DVD disc, we know that the whole fractal pattern is there on the disc. What the laser player does is moves from point to point on the disc to tell a narrative. The narrative has already been told, but depending on the sequencing, depending on whether the laser dwells on a given moment, freezes a screen, depending on the sequencing, it can be a very different story. That's where editing comes in. So we have the whole story there. And if I play scene 1 and scene 2 and scene 3, it looks like a lineal experience, where this leads to this, leads to this. If I play scene 6, then scene 1, then scene 2, then scene 3, it's starting to be a little bit more timeless, a little bit more intuitive. If I play it backwards, we get a very different idea. If we go to the moment of surprise and add, an overtone of ominous music, the face of surprise could become the face of terror through the brain trying to make sense of why is that sound next to this face? Oh, there must be something terrible happening. And if we freeze the frame over and over again, whereas other people go on with a different movie, we stay fixated in one location. That's part of the phenomena of trauma. An experience that gets to be so big, that is so undigestible and difficult for the ego to grasp, that we end up repeating it over and over in our minds, not able to breathe it in so we cannot breathe it out. We stay fixated, we say stuck in a rut as it goes round and round and round, building up reserves to be able to, working with technology, adding new knowledge and resources to the point where we can move through that terrain and on to the next event, the next pattern, the next energy to digest, to relate to. So we have the inner ages within this refracted self. We could call these areas up here. So this is, the fact that, like the rings in a tree, we're continually expanding, but we continue to retain every ring within the tree up to that point. We continue to retain every ring up to that point. And so it's possible to look at an event in the present from the perspective of a 1-year-old and feel overwhelmed. It's possible to look from the perspective of a 5-year-old and feel desperate or confused. It's possible to feel the innocence of a 2-year-old about it. We can look through each of the inner ages at a given event. But we can also look at through the lens of the different archetypes. Now, the archetypes are like a color wheel, but just as there are 256 million colors according to your PC, there's also the archetype of red. And these are much smaller. There may be 1,000 shades of red, but the archetype is the abstract extreme of red, the abstract extreme of green, of blue, of yellow, of white and black. In truth, the colors we experience are many shades in between, some more, some less, but we have this concept of archetypes. For example, the lover. Well, when you're dealing with a flow of energy between the self and the larger self, if you relate to it at 1-year-old, you may relate to it as a pleaser. Mom, environment, world, what do I need to do to experience some sense of stability, security, and to be accepted in this dynamic? What do I need to do, not do, etc.? A child needs to satisfy and please, to a certain extent, the environment around them in order to curry favor, to survive, to feel secure, to gain love and belonging, to meet their hierarchy of human needs. Now, if you relate to the exact same event as an adolescent, in the stage as you move from sympathy to antipathy, the yes to the no, then the response is, well, why do we have to do that? Why are you the one saying that? And why is it that instead of that? And, and I don't want to do any, and I don't want that, and I don't like that, and I don't like the way that I wasn't consulted about this. And so there's the antipathy. Same event, different inner age. But there's also at each age, a different sense of which persona are we engaging, which archetype within the psyche. Are we dealing with the wise one, the streetwise one, the fool, the manipulator, the dominator, the one who serves, the one who surrenders, the jester, that humorous persona that makes light of it all? Which persona, which archetypal refraction of the psyche are we relating to the event from? Is it always the same? Is it always the curmudgeon, the critic, the which how it's not going to be right and it's still not going to be right and it's still not going to be right? Are we relating through the persona of the critic? Each facet of our personality, each inner age, and each archetypal energy, first of all. But then we have, of course, the dark face and the light face, the true archetype and the adaptation when the true archetype is cut down. When at 2 years old you scream because in your world you need to be bonded with a calm, regulated adult. And you don't have an adult. You have a frantic teenage grown-up who's self-centered and absorbed and doing this, and you're not able to calm down and match your own heartbeat to a stable adult. And so you scream. The warrior. Cut that out, parent. Grow up. Learn to mature. Understand biology. Pay attention to your child. You chose to have this child. Pay attention. Grow up. Well, a 2-year-old can be whacked down. A 2-year-old can be abandoned. A 2-year-old can be hated. And the giant energy of the grown-up directing this intensity on a small child can mean that the warrior, the part that stands up for what's healthy and right, ends up not only being ashamed because it can't protect the psyche at that age, failing, but needing to adapt. So the impulse of the warrior comes up, but you realize you're really dealing with a child, and so you've got to pivot around. The child is really dealing with a child in a grown-up's body. So you have to placate and manipulate the grown-up who isn't an adult. Well, as you start to explore this terrain, as the healthy warrior is crushed down, an adaptive personality, perhaps a manipulator, perhaps a strategist, replaces the healthy direct warrior to combat the disease, the asymmetry of one child dealing with a bigger child in a grown-up's body. Now you have this dynamic. You have this dynamic of the dark side, the adaptive side of the healthy archetype. So rather than the healthy warrior, maybe what's there is bitterness and cynicism. There used to be a healthy fight there, but that gave up long ago. And so now there's a healthy cynicism, or an unhealthy cynicism and a bitterness. So we have the positive and the negative side of the archetypes. We have within the 1-year-old, within the 2-year-old, those times at 1 year old that were deeply wounded and small and traumatizing, and those sides that were abundant and healthy. So we have the healthy side and the dark side of the inner age. We have the true color and the adaptive color of the archetype. And this is our mix through which it's our lens through which to process data as it flows from the small self to the large self, from the large self to the small self. And we witness it. But we also identify. We identify with our beliefs, with our attitudes, with our feelings, our thoughts, our choices, our decisions. I feel this. We are no longer the one watching the equation. We are the equation. Someone did this to me. And this is where we, of course, get attached. We get attached to the survival, security, love and belonging, etc. of the ego, which means we also get attached to those who affect the survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, gifts, etc. of that ego. Meaning, if you're 2 years old and you want to survive, that's a little bit hard at 2 years old. So your attachment is to the grown-ups around you who have the ability to cook and give you food. If you are not attached to securing that, the body dies. And so there's an investment in that attachment. I need this, so you've got to do this. I need to feel like this, so you've got to say this. I need to not feel this, so you can't say this. I need to have energy to get out of bed, so you have to say something nice that energizes me. I need to have money, so you've got to pay me at the end of my job. I need you to pay me at the end of the job so that I have the money to pay my rent. And so if you don't pay me, I'll take you to court. I'll show the contract. I'll do this because I need you to behave like this so that I can behave like this so that I won't be thrown out in the street, etc. And I will survive. I will feel secure. I will feel love and belonging. So you can see the interdependency, the codependency, the awareness that I require, particularly as an infant, when you're 1 year old and your mom decides to leave you in a car without any windows, when all the windows are up and it's 100 degrees, you can start crying. But you need someone, mom or someone else, to see that there's a burning infant in that child to break the window and get you out of that. If you do not succeed in eliciting that response, you're dead. Now, if you can succeed to scream loud enough that someone gives a damn, then you survive another day. You are in a codependent relationship where you require support. And of course, the more these types of events happen in childhood, the more the intensity of those emotions overshadow the grown-up self. And if you have many, many feelings in childhood of maybe I won't survive, maybe I won't be loved, maybe I will be hated and be all alone and lonely forever, if you have many of those feelings based on events where big giants around you behaved in a certain way and you did not know if you'd make it to another day, then those grooves, the cut in the personality that makes is a deep groove. And so when someone wants to give you a surprise birthday or not tell you where you're going to be more anxious than the person who has been well cared for. Because the person whose survival has been in jeopardy every time they're out of control is going to be more, I need to know what's going on, I need this, etc., because if I don't, I may not survive. And so you have a bleed through from the early childhood ages overshadowing. All of the emotion that a 1-year-old couldn't process is now bleeding into the 30-year-old, the 40-year-old, because it's too big to be contained in that one age. It's not till I'm 40 years old and have these feelings that I can look at it and say, at 20 years old, I still wasn't able to take care of you. At 21, At 30 years old, I was getting there. But now at 40 years old, little one, I'm your new parent, and I can do the job that my parents never did, that my teachers never did, that my government, my cult never did. I can do that job. I can hold that fear. I can see it. I can respond. I can care about you. And now, for once, you've got a parent that you've needed as a 1-year-old, and you can calm down because I am that parent. I am the one you've always needed and never had. This is, of course, the process of maturing, to become that which we could not receive. But of course, there's still a codependent relationship. It's just now internalized. The inner 1-year-old feels anxious and terrified. And the 40-year-old says, I see you. And I know that if I don't tend to you at 1 year old, my life at 40-year-old becomes hell because your feelings start escalating and bleeding through. But now, at this time, I do tend to you, and so you calm down. And so you depend on me, and I depend on me, and I depend on you. I depend on you calming down with proper care and parenting internalized, so that I can be present in the moment, so that I can respond to the moment with the age of the moment, as opposed to the age of the past. I depend on you, and you depend on me. An interdependent relationship between the child, the adolescent, the adult. The mathematics of the ego, the mathematics of consciousness, are the interrelationships of all of these numbers. The number 1, a 1-year-old. The intensity of the experience, 1 to 10. Are we at peak intensity? Are we at 20% intensity? So we have 1 plus 20% intensity. Does it last a moment, an hour, a year, multiplied by 1 year? Creates a ripple effect of belief. As impact comes into our bodies, we have a ripple effect of belief where, for example, if our primary caregiver forgets us in the back of the car repeatedly, one impact that we might naturally believe is that our life is not very important, because mom is worrying about being late for work. That's more important than my life. Mom is worrying about what so-and-so is going to think of her as she drives by. That's more important than my life. Mom is worried about what's going to happen when dad comes home. That's more important than my life. Mom is worried about the rent. That's more important than my life. And so her attention is on these 4 things. And I slip through the cracks. Now, a reasonable interpretation for a child is I must not be worth protecting. I'm not as worth protecting as the rent money, as this, as that, etc., because those are the things that my parent chooses to pay attention to. And I don't end up on the list. And of course, the evidence is that if I was worth thinking about, I would be foremost on the consciousness. And if I was foremost on a hot day, anyone knows to roll down the window or take me with them. And if I was foremost, maybe I would not have been conceived. Maybe mom wasn't worried about me. She wanted a little bit more pleasure without a condom. But she wasn't worried about me. The fact that she didn't have the means, the training, the wherewithal, the family support, the community support, that she wasn't in an emotionally literate culture that would make my life beautiful, healthy, safe. She was worried about other things then too, and as she became pregnant, she didn't read this and this pregnancy book and to study this and make checklists, etc. Because again, her favorite TV show was more important than me. And so when all of these impacts cumulatively add up to the desperation and trauma that a child feels repeatedly, the belief, I'm not worth loving, because if I was worth loving, Mom would love me. The belief starts to set in the template. Core beliefs, beliefs after that. Now, once the belief is set, now the belief is a lens through which to process reality. Now, when you're hungry, it's because I'm not worth loving. So now hunger takes on a whole new meaning. Now the hunger really hurts because it's hitting me again and again with feelings. I feel sad. Sad about what? Sad that I'm not worth loving. Well, why aren't you worth loving? Well, because Mom doesn't love me. Why doesn't she love you? Because I'm not worth loving. How do you know that? Well, she doesn't know what I feel. She doesn't respond to this. She hurts me. She does this and this and this and this. And I feel unloved. Because that is not the behavior of a loving adult. That behavior doesn't help me survive. It threatens my survival. It doesn't help me feel secure in my survival. It undermines my security and adds anxiety. It doesn't make me feel like I am welcome and that I belong. It communicates that I've been forgotten. It doesn't make me feel valuable, that I like myself with self-esteem. In fact, I don't like myself. Why? Because I want to be someone who Mom would love, who Mom would prioritize in this stage of my development. I want to be that person, and I'm obviously not that person by definition. I'm not that person. If Mom only pays attention to tall, dark, handsome so-and-so, I'm not tall. I'm not so-and-so. I don't like myself. I want to be what Mom likes, because then I would survive. Then she would prioritize me. Then my needs would be met: survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, development, moving towards wealth and abundance as we develop our gifts and share that energy outward, the wealth and abundance, moving towards the transcendence of the self and a remembrance of our relationship with the larger environment, with legacy and service, the ultimate needs, the final needs of a human being. To die well knowing that we made a positive difference. If I was valuable, I would be moving in that direction. As it is, I don't know if I'll make it through the next car trip. If I was lovable, Mom wouldn't be an addict. Why is she an addict? Well, because I'm not interesting enough. She's much more interested in the way she feels. And she's much more interested in avoiding this feeling that she feels when she's not on cocaine. She doesn't want to feel that way. I'm not as important as this feeling and this feeling, avoiding this feeling and feeling this instead. I must not be lovable. Who do I want to be? I want to be that which is lovable. So the belief, of course, then leads to attitudes. If I am not lovable, I feel sadness. I have an unhopeful attitude. Why would I hope? Hope for what? Hope to survive, hope to feel secure, hope to feel loved and belong, hope to feel self-esteem. Why would I hope to feel that which I am undeserving of? Because that moves into a new belief. The question is, well, why doesn't Mom love me? And the question is, or the answer is, it's not about Mom. See, Mom's the deity. Mom is that which we are becoming. So Mom is by definition perfect, whatever Mom is. So if I am not lovable, it must mean I don't deserve to be loved. It must not mean that Mom is incapable of loving me as I am. It must mean that I don't deserve to be loved. And how is this played out in attitudes? Maybe envy. You deserve to be loved because your mom loves you. I don't. So I don't deserve. I feel unlovable. I feel sad. I feel ashamed because I'm the one that doesn't deserve. Well, as the impact internalized of a variety of actions, as the impact ripples out from the caregiver, it shapes the template, the crystalline shape through which all energy will pass. As long as that belief, as long as that feeling, as long as that attitude remains in place as the only intelligent equation. Now, of course, as you get older, you have the chance to revisit some of these templates and say, no. This had nothing to do with you. No, I thought it had everything to do with me. No, it has nothing to do with you. See, as an adult, you can face that reality. As a child, the idea that you have no control, the fact that there is absolutely nothing you can do as a child, as an infant, to ensure your survival, that if you're stuck with a fucked up maniac, you're screwed and there's nothing you can do about it as a 2-year-old, as a 1-year-old, as a 5-year-old. There's nothing you can do about it. This collapses the psyche, this awareness, this belief. It's not you, it's Mom. And it's not particularly about her, it's the cult, it's her family system. It's her lack of training. It's a cult that doesn't change or train parents. It's a cult that doesn't study prenatal biology. It's a cult that's emotionally illiterate. It has nothing to do with Mom. It has to do with the cult. If your mom had been born into a sane cult which studied parenting, studied early childhood biology, studied early childhood nutrition, studied emotional literacy, the naming of feelings, the environments that produce the different feelings, the thoughts that correlate with environments to produce feelings, the diagnosis of reality through feelings, all by the time you're 10, 11 years old. And if in adolescence you practiced healthy, sustainable, team-based relationships in which you started businesses together in high school in little pods of 5 and you extracted each other's core strengths, you practiced producing a product together and selling it. You practice producing a service together and selling it. You practice buying a product and reselling it, distributing it in a more useful format. You practice synergizing, taking this product, this service, this talent, this situation, and creating something 10 times more valuable than the individual components. And you did this for 3 or 4 years so that by the time you were ready to form an independent family of your own, you understood economics, you understood relationships, you understood your own feelings, you understood your own biology, and you were actually equipped to navigate in the environment we were in. And let's not forget ecology, the basic mathematical equation. The basic mathematical equation. Are you a Cancer or are you a colleague? You see, a Cancer rapidly regenerates out of sync with its host body. A Cancer comes in and says, I've got an idea. And the body says, wait. We're not ready to rapidly reproduce that just right now. That's going to create a huge bulge here. That's going to create a problem, and the whole body will fall apart. The Cancer says, I don't care. It's all about me. It's all about me. Pay attention to me. I've got an idea. And it starts replicating that idea very, very fast. Very, very fast. It's the nature of a Cancer. Bum. Gets bigger and bigger and spreads. Oh, we're growing like mad. We've conquered a new region. Salesforce parties are in order. The Cancer's growing like mad. And on the other side of this explosive rate of unregulated, unattuned growth, the host body dies. And the Cancer says, oh dear, I guess we're going to die too. Because without a host body, there's nothing to feed on. So a Cancer has a very short lifespan because it kills its host. A partner has a very rich lifespan because it grows a host. You see, when a tree grows on the ground, by the time the tree dies, there is more ground than there was before the tree exists, because the tree is in a sustainable relationship with its host body. The tree is building its host. The definition of a Cancer is a rapidly replicating pattern that destroys the host upon which it depends. Now, of course, we are part of the host body. So as we destroy the host body, we simultaneously, as we put carcinogens and all kinds of different imbalanced chemical formulations in the environment, rapidly producing them, producing lots of money. But of course, our host body doesn't need money. Our host body needs replanted forests to offset the cut forests. The host body needs CO2 being absorbed to offset the 1,500 metric tons of CO2 you and I, as a Western individual, are going to produce. 1,500 metric tons, or the 102 tons of garbage that's going to be incinerated or put into a landfill to sustain 200 pounds of mass. 102 tons of waste. 93,000 gallons of gasoline consumed so that 200 pounds can navigate within the host body in a particular way. Sound like a partner, sound like a Cancer. If we're part of the host body, it's no wonder. It's no wonder in the fractal pattern. It's no wonder how many of us get Cancer. To remind us the mathematics of unregulated reproduction doesn't work. The business goes bankrupt. And these are, of course, the different dimensions, political, economic, relational, in body and in ecology. These mathematics that we experience produce feelings. They produce thoughts. They produce beliefs. They are experienced through different parts of our archetypal energy. They're experienced through different part of our ages. And yet we, the larger self, watch the mathematics. It's like kids. 1 + 1 + 3 × 4 - 8 equals 2 + 5 + 9 - 10 × 350,000 equals 600,000 - 2 divided by this plus the square root of this equals. The moment equals egoic consciousness. Refract the entire reality through language like this equals. Refract the entire reality like this equals. The moment. The moment is generated. The moment is generated from this equation. An equation that becomes internalized as we're born and raised in a given cult, in a given environment, that becomes externalized as the beliefs that are most loudly communicated to us through impact, not words, impact. No child pays attention to their mom saying, "Take care of the homeless, turn the other cheek, the meek will inherit the earth." No, they pay attention to their mom speeding up as she drives by the homeless person who's been there day after day after day, meek, homeless, needy, and completely ignored by the 10,000 cars that pass that individual every single day. The impact of the action is 100 times more potent than the impact of the thought that is violated, that is disintegrated, that is ignored by the behavior of driving by. We learn from impact. Patterns of energy hit us hard. There is a logical set of probabilities that we look for in a pattern. If we feel helpless because so-and-so wouldn't help us, and so-and-so wouldn't help us, and so-and-so wouldn't help us, and so-and-so wouldn't help us, so we feel helpless. Because after that happens a certain amount of times, we form a belief, no one wants to help me. And then the question is, well, what other beliefs fit with that ecology? Am I a valuable person that nobody wants to help? That doesn't make sense. I must not be very valuable. Otherwise, people would want to help me. So no one wants to help me because I'm not valuable. And I'm not valuable because no one wants to help me. And no one wants to help me because, well, look, I asked this, and they said no. So-and-so said they'd get back to me next week, and they didn't. So-and-so knew that I needed help and didn't offer. So that's my world. I'm not helpable. Now here's where we come into this connection with the self. So our reality is always impacting us with beliefs, with messages, core messages that reflect the behavior and actions of those involved. Those are the messages. That's the reality, particularly of other people. The self has a different message. The self is outside of the set. The self says, no, you are unconditionally valuable. You are unconditionally valuable. You are lovable. And the self reverses the equation. The self takes pity on the mother who doesn't know how to love because she wasn't loved herself, and says, this has nothing to do with you. This is just how this energy shows up in this refraction called a personality and a human ego. It comes in and it shows up like this. It's cut like this. It's refracted like this. It's echoed back this. It's repeated 3,000 times and spits out an equation called despair, called loneliness, called grief, called helplessness, called confusion. Why do you keep saying the meek will inherit the earth and driving by them with impatience? It's confusing. Why do you keep saying this? That it's a democracy, but the government doesn't reply to my emails. I thought it was about... It's confusing. I don't matter. The government says I don't matter. This means you don't matter and we're just wasting paper replying to you and we'll do absolutely nothing. I see. Well, that's the message my teacher said. We want to have any questions, but not any real questions. So we're living in an insane world. It's a belief. This bit doesn't match this bit. This bit doesn't match this one. This is an insane world. Well, how do you feel in an insane world? Well, it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to win if we're this crazy. Make sense? If 2 plus 2 supposedly equals 687, but it doesn't feel like 687, it feels like 4. If you need 687 and someone says, well, here's 2 plus 2, have at it. If you need 3,000 calories and someone says, well, here's 2 calories plus 2 calories, there's your 3,000 calories. You say, well, I'm still hungry. It doesn't work. They say, well, that's 2 plus 2, that's 3,000 calories. Are you going to be nourished if there's a fault in the mathematics? Well, this is where transparency, truth, sanity comes in. But what if the people around you are committed to hiding the underlying mathematics? They keep saying everything's going to be okay. Well, is that what they said to the drunk on the street as they drive by? Everything's going to be okay? It seems like he's just going downhill. Now he's got PTSD. Now he's talking to himself. Is that what okay means? Everything's going to be okay? So when you tell me everything's going to be okay, are you saying I may end up on the corner, mumbling to myself, with impatient Christians driving by because the meek will inherit the earth? Is that what it means? What does it mean? Oh, you're angry at me because I'm asking these questions. Does that mean if I try and unbury myself from the graveyard of delusions and insanity, that you will be angry at me for telling the truth? Do you represent the planet as a whole? Will everyone be angry at me as I attempt to become sane? What about the truth will set you free as opposed to the truth will get everyone angry at you? Which is it? Well, you're angry at me. You don't have time. You're not. The truth will get you ostracized. Well, that's a depressing thought, isn't it? Because, you see, and this is the wrap into the ego. The wrap into the ego is the intelligent mathematics of impact produced by the cult and the environment in which we occupy. And it's lineal, and it's a zero-sum game. Meaning, if I am not lovable, then I will not be loved. That's a zero-sum game. The self is transcendent. It's watching this whole process of mathematics. 1 plus 2 plus 3 times 4 minus 8 equals 3 times 6. It's watching the whole game. It's not living the equation. It's bigger than the mathematics. Now, the byproducts of these equations are our teachers. Meaning, if you are a mathematics professor and you're trying to get to the number 0, or you're trying to get, well, let's just say 0, the alpha, the omega, the transcendent. If you're trying to come to that, and plus this, minus this, you're trying to exit the set, to come to a neutral equation, which sets you free. You don't have money to spend and you don't owe anyone any money. You're out of the set. If you're trying to come back to 0, and all the numbers keep, now you're negative 300,000, now you're plus thing, now this is plus 300,000 of this. Each of your equations is your teacher. Your teacher about what? Your teacher about where the environment isn't telling the truth. Because the greatest truth is beauty and goodness. Beauty, truth, and goodness, the Platonic values, the greatest truth is beauty, truth, and goodness. That's where it all ends up. Now, why does it all end up that way? Because it's fun. Because it's fun. Because at the end of the day, if you keep practicing this game, you get good at it. And if you keep practicing the game and get good at it, you develop mastery. And what mastery is that you get to predict and choose the end of the equation. That you get to predict and choose the end of the equation. This belief plus this attitude times this event recurring multiple times the 1-year-old times plus the 2-year-old plus the 8-year-old plus my 24-year-olds, this, all of that put together equals Bing. I get to choose what the outcome is. Now, this is the single most important step that is possible within the ego framework. I get to choose what the outcome is. That's the place of mastery. Why is this such a big deal? Well, you can kind of look at it like a jeweler. So we have this ring here. Well, this ring didn't just come out of nowhere. It is the process of more than 1 million hours of human development. Metal had to be discovered before this ring was possible. Silver had to be differentiated from all the metals. Mining had to be developed as an industry, then efficient mining, then transportation, because this wasn't mined around here. Then smelting, reliquefying, casting. And the same with gemstones. They had to be identified, mined, polishing had to be developed, which meant polishing tools had to be developed. Then design had to be engineered. There are more than 1 million man-hours at the back of this ring. If someone never discovered metal, this ring doesn't exist. Polishing, it doesn't exist. Wholesaling, shopkeeping, these all had to be developed before I could walk into a shop and buy this ring for $40. Bing. A price that is fun. Why not? Let's put it on. And of course, it had to be sized rightly. Now, the question is, if you had mastery, would you make a ring that wouldn't fit anyone? Unlikely. If you had mastery, would you increase the cost for no particular reason? I could get this done in an hour. Let's take 360 hours and drive the price up beyond what anyone wants to buy. Just because it looks just like the next ring that costs $40, but this one is $40,000. Why not? You can have this identical ring or this identical ring, $40,000, $40. If you have mastery, you create a beautiful outcome. An environment, a context, an equation in which people win. You have mastery when you can decide the outcome. Once you can decide the outcome with certainty, the outcome moves in a positive direction. It is our nature to grow and evolve. Once we have mastery and can decide the outcome, it is human nature to make each outcome a little better or a lot better than the outcome before. Once you have mastery, you say, okay, I can make this ring for $40. Now let's make this ring for $1, because you've got control of the outcome. Well, how are you going to do it? Well, I'll introduce nanobots. I'll have nanobots, I'll invent this, and well, how are you going to do that? Because I have mastery. Mastery of what? Mastery of energy, mastery of technology, mastery of my own consciousness, mastery of my own mind. Well, why would you do that? Because it's fun. Because if you have mastery, you move towards beauty, truth, and goodness because it's fun. Because when you taste something good and you know how to cook it, and then you go back and taste something bad because you didn't know how to cook it, you go back to the dish that was cooked well and you say, I like this one. I'll have another one of this one next time I order. And of course, ordering at a restaurant is a type of mastery. The mastery of earning the money, the mastery of picking your favorite restaurant, the mastery of showing up in one piece, driving through 10,000 cars to get to the restaurant, another form of mastery. A mastery of walking into the restaurant, the mastery of getting out your credit card, and the mastery of picking up a utensil that's made from a metallurgical process that was developed with millions of man-hours over centuries, and eating the best food that you can. Why? Because it's fun. So if you understand that with practice and development comes mastery, and that with mastery comes fun, and that the most fun thing around is beauty, truth, and goodness in a sustainable and graceful dance. What does sustainable mean? It means you don't have to do it all over again every single day. The trees don't have to be planted every morning so that they're grown by noon. They just keep growing. That's sustainable. It means that your feelings don't have to be pumped up with positive affirmations every single morning. You create a beautiful environment in which positive feelings grow out of the environment. Just naturally, just like a tree. And it means you don't have to go and do battle to fix the problems, because you didn't create the problems in the first place, because you have mastery. Sustainability is more fun than having to do it all over again constantly, and it's constantly falling apart. Beauty, truth, and goodness are fun because they're fun. You want this ugly face or you want this nice face? Let me decide. Today I'll pick the ugly one. Why? Maybe it's fun to remind me just how fun it is to pick the beautiful face. So I'm going to pick this face today because it's fun to remember how far I've grown, perhaps. Are you going to pick it every day? Probably not. Why? Because you've got mastery and it's not fun. So everything is moving towards beauty, truth, and goodness. The self already is in beauty, truth, and goodness. That part of us that is outside of the equation is waiting for the ego inside the equation to figure out the mathematics, to recreate this circle mathematically through the lens of language, through the lens of biology, in its dance with itself. In its dance with itself. What do you mean, itself? Well, if you look as a scientist rather than as an egotist and occultist, if you look at as a scientist at the relationship between human beings and the planet, what's exactly the line? Do human beings impact the planet? Change the planet? Does the planet change human beings? Is there a continual flow of energy going back and forth from one to the other? Is every breath you take of the planet? And is every breath you give out given to the planet? So where exactly is the line that says that you're separate from your host body, from the larger ecology of which you are a part? And then you say, well, where does this notion come from? There have been 10,000 cults in human history, 10,000 languages in human history, according to anthropologists. So how many of those cults came up with the idea that we had nothing to do with our environment and that our environment had nothing to do with us? Well, we did. Well, how many of the other 9,999 cults thought that that made sense? Let's see. The Native Americans thought the earth was our mother. It's only 500 years ago on the same land. Seems a reasonable thing. We come out of the earth. We are fed by the earth. We are watered by the earth. We are breathed by the earth. The earth is our mother. The earth is the area where every cell in our body came from this earth. And our parents came from this earth as well. The earth is our mother. That fits nicely with the data. I'm an individual and have nothing to do with the earth. It's a bit shaky as a theory. It's like, show the mathematics. Where does your energy come from? Well, I just breathe in and breathe out. Has nothing to do with the earth. But where did the air come from? Well, it was produced, it just was there. Produced by what? I guess by trees. Where'd the trees come from? Well, they were just there. They were just there, eh? It's a very, very shaky proposition what our cult is built on. And it's a very abnormal. I think that the vast majority, probably more than 90% of all cults in the entire fabric of humanity did not look at the data and say, yeah, I just came out of nowhere and poof, here I am, an independent, autonomous individual with nothing to do with anyone else and nothing to do with the planet and ignoring all the data to the contrary. That's a pretty unique perspective. Where did it come from? Where's the data? One of the data points is cult trauma. You see, when little infants, going back to that scenario, get hurt over and over again, and their first narrative is that they're unlovable and they're unvaluable, etc., or they wouldn't be hurt. But later on, their narrative comes, that person has nothing to do with me. That's not my family. They don't love me. I don't like these people because they hurt me. And then it just goes to a further extreme. The trees didn't help me when my mom was suffocating me and blah, blah, blah. I don't want anything to do with them either. I'm a complete isolated individual. Let me be cancerous. Let me do my own thing in my own way very rapidly and produce lots and lots of energy that has nothing to do with the larger ecological balance. And let's see how that goes. That's how a cancer cell gets started. And in a healthy environment, The individuals around say, no, 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 you're a part of this body, and it's not good if you form a cancerous pattern. So let's teach you how to do it properly. We're not going to produce more carbon dioxide than we're going to plant trees. We're not going to do this until, we're not going to cut all these trees down and create wind velocity by sudden temperature changes. We're going to create canopy. Here's how we attune to our environment. Well, why are you saying that's none of your business? Oh, it actually is our business. You are our business. Because despite the delusion perpetuated by your parents that they have nothing to do with you because they're not protecting your survival, your security, your love and belonging, they're violating it as if they're not a part of you. Despite the numbness needed for a mother to walk away with an infant and a burning child, that's insane. She's too numb to remember her connection to you. But it doesn't mean you have to be too dumb to avoid remembering that what you do is a part of us and what we do is a part of you. And so we need to attune. We need to partner together. Towards what? Towards balance, towards healing, towards wholeness, towards symmetry, towards grace, towards excellence, towards beauty, towards truth, towards goodness, towards abundance of beauty, truth, and goodness. Why? Because it's fun. And because we can. Do you want to do that? And everyone who knows they can do it, and everyone who has the feeling, the visceral memory of that, and everyone who has the visceral choice, they taste the, disgusting mud pie, and then they eat the delicious chocolate cake, and then they taste the mud pie, and it's like, yeah, I like this one better. Everyone who has the choice, who has mastery, moves in that direction. Not everyone has that choice. Not everyone feels mastery, and many cling to ugliness, cling to asymmetry, because it's familiar. I'd rather the devil I know than the devil I don't know, and all I know are devils. So I'm going to pick this devil. But there's this other thing. No, there isn't. It doesn't fit within my beliefs. I accepted the belief that I'm worthless. Well, why would someone try to help me if I'm worthless? Now, you say you're trying to help me, okay? Now, I know that's a lie because I'm worthless. So what are you really up to? Why are you sitting down here saying this stuff to me? I'm worthless, so you're up to something. So in order to hold on to the devil we know, the worthlessness of the familiar belief, etc., we've got to then rewrite, you're trying to get my money. I know. We all know that money is more important than people. Well, how do we know that? Well, I saw this person and this person and this person. They all had the chance to be nice to this person, but they chose the money. They wanted the money more than the person. There are homeless people all around us because it's not that the homeless don't want a home. It's they don't have enough money to buy the home. Well, why don't we build little $100 homes for them? It's not very profitable. So it's about money again. Yes, money is more important than people. Well, I'm not money, so I'm not important. I've got money, so I'm more important than you. But I'm not money, so I'm ultimately not that important. So you must be interested in my money because that's the important thing. I see. So, you say you're trying to help me, which doesn't add up. It just doesn't fit in the mathematical equation. You must be trying to do this and this and this. Therefore, you're worse than the person who doesn't try to help me. Because the person who doesn't try to help me isn't lying to me. They know I'm worthless. That's why they're not trying to help me. I know I'm worthless. That's why I'm not helping myself. You say you want to help me. That doesn't fit. The math doesn't add up. So what are you going to hold to? The idea that maybe I could be worth something? Seems odd. Why would you be the one to notice that? So-and-so didn't notice it. So-and-so didn't notice it. So-and-so didn't notice it. Why would you come to a different conclusion than all these other people? It seems a bit risky to me. I'm just going to stick with the devil I know, the mathematics that I understand. Mom did this and this and this. The only thing that makes sense in that is that I'm not worth it. Since I'm not worth it, I haven't invested in myself. Since I haven't invested in myself, I haven't advanced anymore. That's natural because I'm not worth it. What do you expect? It all fits very nicely. There's a nice chain of events in that ripple effect. My warrior, of course, wants to fight it, but it gave up and became cynical long ago. My lover wants to love something, but, why would it want to love something when we're not worth it? I'm not worth it, so why are you worth it? And then you end up stuck in a self-referential loop that is familiar and thus secure, but, of course, it's very painful. Now, one of the interesting things about human beings is they will often choose certain pain over uncertain pleasure, or a pain-pleasure volatility. Take a girlfriend. He's really nice to me so-and-so, and then he's really cruel to me. Then he's really nice to me, then he's really cruel to me. I think I'm going to end the relationship. Why? 50% of the time, he's nice to you. And you're never nice to yourself, or you're questionably nice to yourself. You feel lonely, alone, judging yourself, criticizing yourself, hurting your body, etc. So-and-so's nice to you half of the time and cruel. Yeah, but I feel out of control. I never know when it's going to be this or this. I want certain pain over volatility. Yeah, sometimes you're late. I'm not going to invite you. I don't know. Sometimes you do really nice things, but I don't want to. I don't like the volatility. I don't want to feel out of control. And this speaks to a need for certainty, a need for control, a need to create an ability to have mastery. And if all I'm capable of doing is masterfully recreating a pain over and over and over again, then I'll do it. I'd rather that and have some control over my life. But as you masterfully create pain over and over again using these equations, as you masterfully create fear over and over again creating these equations, and you've got a consistency. It's like every day I'm terrified. Every day I'm guilty. Every day it's like I've got it down. I've got guilt down. I've got shame down. Like every fucking day I look in the mirror and I feel inadequate. I add this thought, this belief, this past memory, this thing, ba-bam, equals inadequate. Okay, we've got that one down. It's a good equation. Let's try it again tomorrow. This thought, this belief, this memory, this person's feedback, etc., and ba-bam, inadequacy. Ba-bam, inadequacy. I've got this one down. It's exciting. It's like, oh my goodness. Now I've got depression down because it just keeps going on. Shame and fear and inadequacy just going on endlessly produces depression. I can do that too. So we've got the equation going. But at some point, either it gets too painful and you start over again, or you say, is there anything more? Got this down. I've really got the certainty down. I've got mastery of this. But what if I inverted this and started creating joy? Could I do it? It seems very iffy. I haven't done it before. My mom didn't do it. So-and-so didn't do it. It seems very tenuous, because if I'm unlovable, this seems like a loving thing to do. Well, if I'm loving myself, then how can I be unlovable? Wait a minute. That's a core belief there. It's like the whole structure falls away and suddenly I'm lovable? Well, then I have to admit, well, why didn't they love me? I'm lovable. Why didn't they love me? Are they inadequate? Are they unlovable? Are they unloving? You're unloving. I'm not unlovable. You're unloving. Well, that creates new problems. What do you think of me? Well, I think you're unloving. Well, how dare you? You were unlovable. No, I'm not. You're unloving. No, you're unlovable. Your dad and me, we did everything, but you were impossible. I'm impossible. Well, if I'm impossible, why should I invest in possibilities? There's these constant tensions. Well, how do we masterfully move towards what's fun, towards beauty, truth, and goodness? How do we do it? With the chaos, the fear, which is it? Which is it? And particularly traumatized infants, such as myself, particularly traumatized infants. It's I just want to know which way it is. I need something solid because I don't have anything there to hang on to. One day mom's doing this one thing so over the top. It's so unintegrated. Which is it? Well, when you hang on to the belief that I'm worthy and I'm valuable and I'm lovable, and that's the way things are, when you hang on to that belief, but someone who has control over your life doesn't love you, dishonors you, lies to you, violates this, that, and the other, it has so much impact. It ripples through. It's like, how can I be lovable if all these people are doing all these things all the time? Maybe I'm not lovable. It's just too much to keep pushing off. And the belief switch flips the other way. Once you get stuck in that rut, it becomes comfortable. It's like I know what it's like with the switch flipped here. Every time I try and flip it this way, I get into fights with everyone around me who say that I'm not worth it. Who do I think I am? It's like, I don't want to deal with that. So I'll just leave the switch here. But the switch keeps producing this mathematical result. And the witness keeps watching, keeps opening, keeps holding space. This is your game. This is your calculator. 1 + 1 + 3, 5. 2 - 7 - 600,000,027 equals. What is it? What is it? Punch it in and see. Punch it in and see. See what the equation is. When you do this equation in your political world, you get elected if you do this. You don't get elected if you do this. But wait a minute. Why do the good people not be elected? Well, because the people electing them are electing what they know. I see. So if I really tell the truth about this, nobody's going to elect me. Interesting. Economically, if I do this and this and this, I have more money. But why do I get more money when I tell people to buy things they shouldn't buy? They don't really need. The truth is the whole thing is a little bit of a joke. You don't need any of this. Just take a deep breath in, but they don't buy anything, and then I have less money. But then when I have less money, I'm surrounded by people who say, you're not worth anything. And I say, take a deep breath in, and they say, you're a fool. And it's like, oh my goodness, I thought I was doing something intelligent. I guess I'm a fool, because everyone's saying it. It keeps sinking in. It's hard to sway an entire tide of impact of messages. And relationally, everyone keeps saying the family, the most important thing, but then they go away and disconnect and spend 10 minutes a day with their children. 10 quality minutes a day when the most important thing is the family? This is insane. But what if you did it this and this? How does it work? in our body. What happens when we eat lots of sugar, cocaine, this, that, the other? What's the equation? Well, it goes really up here and then it crashes. You go into debt with credit cards and it goes up and then it crashes. Ah, I see. The mathematics. The ecology. What happens when we cut down all the trees but still want to breathe? It's hard to breathe. More cancer. We need masks. Oh my goodness. Oh, let's go the other way. Let's plant lots of trees. Ah, it's easy to breathe. Oh, I see. Mathematics. The witness self interacting with the larger body, the larger self, with the ego, the consciousness fabricated by language, underwritten by mathematics. The language of mathematics, the language of words, the language of geometry, the language of energy. The equation, moving towards sustainability, moving towards grace, moving towards beauty, truth, and goodness, each step of the way. The impact, you're not worthy. This isn't right. This is inadequate. This is not the impact. The larger self, the template. In many ways, the larger self is the unconscious circle, the unconscious sphere, the mathematics of symmetry and grace, of presence, of beauty, truth, and goodness, unconscious. As we come into the ego development, we develop conscious asymmetries and difficult equations because, of course, there isn't enough language to express all that's there. The consciousness can only look at a small point on the DVD of a lifetime and say this bit, this. If I get stuck here in this. The job of the ego to make it through the DVD in a way that brings the conscious mind up to the unconscious mind, to the nonverbal articulation of symmetry and grace, the endless and eternal. And of course, you know, in a circle, in a journey, the hero's journey or any journey, you start off in unconscious perfection. You move into conscious calamity and asymmetry, and because it's a new environment. And then you work your ass off for 10, 20, 30, 100,000 years, million years, slowly within the framework of consciousness, you return more and more to the grace of symmetry, the grace of sustainability, the fun of beauty, truth, and goodness. You end up back where you began, consciously partnering with the underlying mathematics that you've always been a part of. With the underlying mathematics that you've always been a part of. Partnering with that. Returning to that. Dealing with the crudeness of what's there. And of course you can withdraw and not take the journey. But to evolve back into grace involves battles. With what? With yourself. With the faulty equations. With your own energy that you don't know how to honor and respect. It's from the unconscious grace into the conscious chaos and torment, and back towards conscious grace. To return in the end to the beginning and know the place for the first time.